Evening, everybody. This is Robert Hart. I'm here at the Hip Hop Comedy Stop with a very special guest, one of the legends of the entertainment world. I'm sure many of you remember him from his many concerts and clubs and club appearances and albums and movies. The whole Dolomite series, which played here in Houston down there at the Majestic Metro for many years. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Mr. Rudy Ray Moore. Thank you for coming out tonight, Mr. Moore.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming out to interview me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. First of all, now I know I've always known of your work, and I've always seen you around here and there, and I've always seen your videos and all that. But tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get started? What made you want to be a comedian? And how did your big break come about?
That has been a long time question that people ask. I started out years ago when I was in the Army. I used to do clubs at the service club for the enlisted men. And one day we was doing a show and some act wasn't ready. So they said, tell a joke, tell a joke. Well, there was an old lady I knew in Cleveland that used to tell jokes by the name of Caledonia. And I had studied her act. I went on the floor and did this act and didn't look back. And from that on, I was inspired to do comedy. Those were the first steps that I made of it. Then I listened to the late, great Red Fox and the late Moms Mabley and got my thing together and come on out and did comedy. I was doing sort of the G-rated comedy then. I never could get a record to hit from me. Then when I found the X-rated material like Dolomite and Shine, Petey Wheat Straw and the Signifying Monkey, the first record I made overnight was an instant smash.
Well, that's good. I never knew all that. So, tell me, how did your first big break come, and how long did it take you to get from being an unknown to that first big moment? These days, a lot of people have instantaneous success, but a lot of performers it takes them years. How long did it take you to come from a nobody to that first big break? Were you discovered by someone in particular?
No, listen, let me explain to you how it really happened. I made the record, as I say, with a tape recorder in my home. I had people come there and I set up some cocktails for them and they laughed at the jokes, and I took them to the studio and put dub music. In other words, I was one of the first comedians to come out with music structure behind my monologues, which made it what you call rap in that particular period. It wasn't so hard because I used very little money to do it with. That's why I tell the young people today, don't give up. A lot of these things you can do yourself. You don't have to wait for some big company to produce and direct you into show business. If you have the willpower, the talent, you can do it yourself. So as I was saying, I made that record first, walked the streets with it in the major ghettos of the different major cities, and overnight, they'd take this record home with them, let friends hear, and overnight, the record was an instant smash in the record stores across country.
All right. I have another question. How did you first get your first big break into films, going from the clubs to that first big film deal?
Well, I'll tell you how I got into film. Like I created the character Dolomite, and he was such a loving character. People enjoyed him all over the country on a record. So I said to myself, what could I do if I created him into a screenplay? I had a young man that I knew to write the screenplay. The little money that I made on this particular record, I took and reinvested it in the film and made the film Dolomite. And people all over the country said, this Dolomite is as bad on the record, on the film as he is on the record. We are going to see it. People give me that break. They lined up all over the country to see my first privately owned film, Dolomite. So this was the beginning of a career in motion pictures that I did all myself.
Wow, that's incredible. What do you think about people who sometimes refer to films such as yours and that came out in that genre of the late 60s and 70s as exploitation films?
No such a thing. The term black exploitation was something that the white people used to try to uh, downgrade us. But I remember when I was a youngster, I went to the motion picture theaters and I looked at the Western films that they had Hopalong Cassidy and always the Indian was the underdog. They didn't call that Indian exploitation. They made the film The Godfather that was about the mafia and Italian. They didn't call that Italian exploitation. Why call a film that we made when we were the dominant character in it, not getting kicked in the behind all the time? Why should they call that black exploitation? I think it was a film that we made for our people to enjoy seeing us in an upper role other than in the maid role or getting kicked in the behind as a Stephen Fetchit and all of them did in that period. And I cannot down the things that Stephen Fetchit and the black actors did in that day because it was what they had to do in order to get a piece of the rock. And I take my hat off to them, the pioneers. They made it possible for us to come along.
What has Hollywood's reaction been to you? I mean, what's their attitude toward you since the film and right now?
Hollywood as a whole, black Hollywood, I'll say, black Hollywood has not recognized me. They have not paid any homage to me. And white Hollywood, you know, definitely never is going to. But I didn't pay that any attention is because I've been comfortable with what I've done. I have been able to make a living where I'd rather have done it and not them said anything positive about me than to been out washing dishes and sweeping floors.
Now, I've seen you recently. I saw you in Snoop Dogg's video, and the other night I was watching you. You were talking about different people using some of your material lines from your jokes. How do you like working with the newer folks?
I like working with the Big Daddy Kane, Luke Campbell of the 2 Live Crew, Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, Snoop Doggy Dogg, all of those young men. Now, listen, I do not endorse the structure in the way that they go about doing these things. But I say to these young men that are doing this, they are trying to get a piece of show business. And I applaud them because they're doing it by whatever means necessary for them to survive. But as an artist, I am an artist. I'm a great artist. I'm not conceited. I'm convinced of my greatness. I know what I'm doing and how to do it. And I say to the young comedians today to watch me, a genius, doing explicit language comedy. I do it in a manner where it has an art form and a flow to it. It's not just a bunch of dirty words after each other. You hear me rap the signifying monkey. Like I say, deep down in the jungle where the coconut grows, lived a bad, bad monkey that we all didn't know. He was a jiving so-and-so, and I ain't lying. He used to get his kicks from just the signifying. You see, to drop a explicit word in there now and then, but make it have a beautiful flow, and not just one dirty word after the other, which is what the young comedians do today, which I tell them to go head on. If that is what they have to do to survive in show business, I don't knock them, but I don't endorse.
So you never thought about compromising that your type of artistry for a more broader audience? For example, being on Leno or Letterman or any of those shows. You never even thought about that?
Yes, I am qualified to, just as Red Fox. Red Fox was an explicit language comedian, but he had a national network television show. That doesn't mean because I do this particular type of language that I cannot convert to something else. I did Arsenio Hall show a couple of times. So I am able to convert if I'm given the break.
Okay. What are some of your future plans? I know you were talking about an album last night, a CD rather. People don't talk about albums anymore.
I have a new film coming. It is a video. It's called The Legend of Dolomite. and I've been paid homage to by many great people like Ice-T and Arsenio Hall, different ones are uh, praising my work in this documentary. And I also am doing 35 minutes of stand-up in it. So that is one of the future plans that is coming out. It's coming out the 28th of October. And I also am doing in Chicago in the month of October a CD-ROM called The Dual Environment. You know, that's the type of program where you can punch a button and make you do what they want you to do. And in that, I am doing different skits where I'm putting the fire out in one place, and they say, well, do you want Dolomite to put the fire out, or do you let him burn? And they may have me just burn up everything with the computerized thing that I'm doing, the dual environment, coming the 1st of 95.
What do you think about the comedy, the black comedy explosion right now? I guess everybody wants to see an African American comedian right now, the younger folks. What do you think about that right now, and the people you see on Def Jam and all that?
I think it's fine, but I want the whole world to know that I am the king of this type of comedy and the godfather of rap. If it wasn't for me, a whole lot of them wouldn't be out there today. I'm the first one to take a bold approach at comedy using the explicit type of language that they are using today. And the rappers, I am the first one to rap like I rap Dolomite, Shine in the Great Titanic, Petey Wheatstraw, Pimpin' Sam. All of those were raps for that period, and the young rappers just took it and hip-hopped it and have taken my thing and went on and made, some of them made a fortune out of it. So I take my hat off to them. Go ahead on, brothers and sisters.
Now, someone told me to ask you, what does Dolomite mean?
Dolomite means strength. Dolomite is a mineral, and it is something to make you strong. Well, I'm already strong, so I said I might as well be that Dolomite. So that's how we come up with Dolomite.
Okay. Somebody told me also to ask you about the legend of Petey Wheatstraw and all that, those characters. You wrote those?
Those are old folklore tales that were told by the beer joint and liquor store wise men that sit out in front of the liquor stores and drink beer and shoot the breeze all day. They come up with tales like Dolomite, signifying monkey shine, and different stories that I tell. What I have did is take them and freshen them up and make them to fit a now generation with the different words that I may use in them. But this is where they first come about.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I never knew any of that. Let me ask you, I've seen you down here in Texas once before. Do you think the fans here in Texas are more enthusiastic about you? Because I remember seeing you a couple years ago. You rode over there at the old Laugh comedy place. You walked in there and you breezed out. But you're down here in the South a lot, I think. You're at JB's sometimes. So is the crowd more enthused down here? Or?
Not really. JB's Entertainment Center, I have done great there because the co-star with me is well-loved artist in this part of the country. And together, the two of us, Johnny Taylor and Dolomite together, just created massive mobs at JB's Entertainment Center. And the Majestic Metro, where my films used to play, I used to draw huge crowds there to come to see my films. So today, I say Houston loved me, as you can see by the crowd here tonight. Houston loves me. And I have a great following all over the country. Well, I'm currently hot now because the rappers has paid back a little bit of dues to me by putting in their recordings, like Dr. Dre. Right. I mean, that record was a 3 million seller. Snoop Doggy Dogg, big video. Illegal, that group, big video. And Big Daddy Kane, big album. So in other words, it has popularized me as to where I can draw crowds all across country.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dolomite, for talking to us here. It's really been a pleasure to talk to you. I really mean that because, I grew up listening to you and seeing you in the films whenever I could. I wasn't supposed to be, but I was doing it. And it's really been a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm glad you found time in your very hectic schedule to speak to us here.
I'd like to say in closing to the young people out there that want to be stars, be what you are. Be the very best of what you are. Reach out for the moon. But if you miss it, cling to a star. And if you miss that one, grab hold to another one, because there's a lot of stars out there in the universe. And someday, somehow, your day will arrive.
Thank you very much, sir, for those kind words. Ladies and gentlemen, Rudy Ray Moore, Mr. Dolomite himself, certainly one of the legends of entertainment. Thank you, and good night.